Hi, and welcome back to day 2 of the Encryption Consulting Conference. Our next speaker is Anate Shimoni, Director of Data Security at Anaplan. Anate's session will focus on POV on PKI and certificate lifestyle management. Anate has 25 years experience in infrastructure and cybersecurity domains as a professional and group leader. Local, cross-country, and client site teams establishment guidance, direct, and matrix management. Please help me welcome Anate to the stage.
Hi, thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm going to talk about the public key infrastructure, commonly known as PKI and certificate management. First of all, I'm Anate Shimoni. I'm based in Israel. I'm a wife, a mother of 3 children, 2 girls and a son. I've joined Anaplan 1 year and a half, and I'm a director of data security and IAM. Of the product and corporate globally, and I'm passionate about security. Okay, so we'll talk about today, this is the agenda, overview about PKI and certificate management, about architectures and features, some key comparison, key importance, and of course, some use cases and examples from Anaplan certificate management. So let's start with an overview of the PKI and the certificate management. What is PKI? So first of all, PKI is a core element in our data security. It's a catch-all term for everything used to establish and manage public key encryption. And it's also one of the commonly formed that used today. The most crucial concept in the PKI is the cryptography keys. And those are both used for encryption and authentication of an identity between parties and devices. There are several advantages of PKI, so I'll mention 3 of them. The major one are flexibility, high-level security, and self-reliance. What is actually flexibility? What does it mean? As we use managed PKI, it's automated, all the certificate lifecycle management, and we can also have customization and to get desired results. So this is what makes it actually flexible. And of course, what is the most commonly benefit is with security. We have in case we have strict regulation, privacy control. Why do we need certificate management? So first of all, what is certificate management? It's a systematic management for digital certificate like X509, TLS, SSL, and it helps us to proactively and prevent certificate outage and costly downtime. If we look on this chart, on these 4 categories, first of all, we have the visibility. We have to make sure that every certificate we actually can find, and we can actually either if it's public or internal. First of all, we see. We have this visibility. The second phase is control. Once we have this visibility, we can control, and actually we can actually apply policies, algorithm, alerts in case the certificate expired, and so on. Before the third stage is automation. Once we have visibility and control, we can actually automate things. We can actually, once certificates are going to be expired, we can automate those renewal and actually avoid outages. And the 4th stage, orchestration, so it's not enough to have visibility, control, and automation, but it's actually also orchestrate. If we have several areas in the business, if we have several tools that use those certificates, if we have to onboard CAs for both internal and external, and this is one of the major steps of certificate management. What are the benefits of certificate management? So basically, the certificate is actually helping us with issuing certificate, renewing certificate, deploying them on the endpoint. It's actually helping us on real-time status on the infrastructure. So actually, what we gain is if we have thousands of devices, a good certificate management can help us to monitor that. So this is one of the main benefits. Now we are going to talk more about the architecture and the features. Okay, let's talk about the basic architecture of the PKI deployment. On the PKI, we have several and common architecture. I'll talk about two of them. We have the 2-tier and the 3-tier. So in the 2-tier, we actually have the offline root CA, and we have the issuing CA. So that's only 2 CA that we have here. And the offline CA certificates, it's actually a private key signs the certificate of the issuing CA. And this issuing CA is actually further responsible for issuing the rest of the certificates with its private key. So in this architecture, we have 2 components. So if we look at it from security perspective, the root CA, it's offline. It actually prevents from attacks. It can actually protect it from attack. And from management perspective, it's much more easier and to manage it, as it's not complicated. On the 3-tier, on the other architecture, the 3-tier, we have 3 CA. We have, like in the previous one, we have the offline root CA, and we have the issuing CA, but we also have an intermediate online CA. So in this architecture, we actually have 3 tiers, which is actually more complex. And it's actually, we have more links in the chain, which can help us to prevent compromise by an attacker. So this is actually, in one hand, it's complex, but on the other hand, we actually benefit from high availability for issuing certificate and all those operation. We gain a high availability for our business. So that's about it. Now we'll talk about the certificate life cycle. So we have several stages, and I'll go over those stages. So first of all, we have the stage of the discovery. This is the first stage of the certificate lifecycle. While the network is scanned to see if we have missing, or we have expired, or we have some unusable certificates. So this is the first phase, and if we have vulnerabilities, we actually can discover them, fix them, remediate, or actually replace those certificates. Then we have the other stage. We have creation and purchasing. In this stage, we have the CA. The CA. It's actually create the certificate, or we can actually, a user can also purchase a certificate from a trusted CA. What we have here, that the certificate, while it's made, it actually, we have the public key, CSR, and the personal identifier information are being sent to the CA to be created with all of this information. The other stage is installation, and this stage is actually deals with the distribution and the installation of the certificate on its endpoint, where the proper pace. On this stage, what actually we have all the configuration of the certificates are actually being validated. If it's the keys, the cipher suite, or the digital signature, those are being validated on this stage. Storing, the next stage. This is one of the most critical stages, when we actually, the certificate has to be stored in a centralized location, secured one, so it will not, in one hand, it should be accessible, but on the other hand, it should not be reused by the attackers. So that's why it's very important to make it secure and a centralized location. So the other stage is monitoring. This stage is actually the extended stage, where we actually monitor the expiration period of the certificates. And once we have the certification reached the expiration, or a bit before, then actually either if it's a certificate lifecycle management or a system administrator can actually monitor and of course renew or revoke and do all those activities. So this is one of the major stage. Renewal. This is the stage where we actually renew the certificate that once the validity has run out. And it can be also, the renewal can be automatic with a CLM, Certificate Lifecycle Management System, or it can be done manually by an administrator. Same for revocation. Revocation, it's also when we have a CA that has been decommissioned or we have certificate that is being misused. So in this case, the certification can be revoked. What does it mean? Once it's revoked, it will be placed in the certification revocation list, which is CRL. The next stage is replacement, which is not commonly used, but it's worth talking about it. If we have a CA that CA certificate is revoked, or we have, or the owner wish to use not the paid certificate, but he used to use his own public key infrastructure, then we have replacement phase occur. Now let's talk about the approaches. We have, first of all, the certificate management infrastructure is one of the key core in data security and also in anaplan. And we have two approaches. One is the two models. We have the manual infrastructure and the automated infrastructure. So I'll talk about the distinguish between those two approaches, which is pretty common sense, but it's worth mentioning. On the manual infrastructure, let's talk about that. Actually, when we have a person that is actually monitor, he can actually monitor the certificates before their expiration, and the policies and everything is actually being done manually. You can have a spreadsheet. It's pretty much easy to install, but it requires a lot of man's hour to do all this continuously monitoring and making sure we are not violating from the algorithm and policies. So it's actually more suitable for small companies. Even in our company, this is what we had before. However, it's quick installation, quick implementation, but still require lots of, if we want to invest in security, we need to continually monitor. On the other hand, on the automated infrastructure, what we actually have here, all the orchestration, the workflows are automatically. The renewal, the replacement, when it's revoked, everything is being automatically done. A certification, the automation here, it's not only for reducing cost and manpower. It's also important that we actually have for a large and enterprise system to have prevent the outage, and it has to be when you have a large scale of devices and certificate, and you have an automatic system, you can actually prevent that in a more and less problems will occur, less incidents. And this is one of the reasons we actually brought a new CLM to prevent those incidents and outages to our customers. And from security perspective, think about that. You have an automatic system that can continually monitor, continually actually validate the policies and detect. So this is something that helps a lot. And from the implementation perspective, so it's not a small implementation, but you have to, once you do it correctly, you gain a lot of benefit from the system. If it's a centralized one, it's give you full visibility. So you gain a lot while doing this automated infrastructure. And the next slide, we can see some key comparison related to that. that we actually did in the company. So before and after, before manual certificate management and after implementation. So what we want to actually emphasize in this slide, that while we are doing all the certificate lifecycle activities in the previous approach with the manual certificate, then those activities could take like 10 minutes, which is great, and it does not consume a lot of time, apparently. But overall, when we look on all over the process, it consumes more time to manage the rest of the process itself. So it took even more than 800 minutes. So this is one side of the coin. And if we look on the automated certificate management, so maybe the actual time spent on the certificate was 30 minutes, but overall, when we look on the big picture, it took us less. So this is something that is important when we actually get in an onboarding and automated infrastructure for the certificate lifecycle. We gain a lot when we look on the overall process, on the bigger picture, and not only for the specific activities, the tactic one, which sometimes can take even less. So this is a very good and the important advantage. Now let's talk about some key importance of PKI and certificate management. Why we need PKI? What is the importance of that? So first of all, it's play a big role. So let's mention at least 3 reasons. I'll start with the first one, which is the most common one. It's the secure website. Actually, we have the TLS, the most common protocol. It's used PKI, and the certificates are actually being used to secure this data in transit. So we have this one major benefit and key importance. Now, the second one, it's a support email and signing encryption. So we have the secure multi-purpose internet mail expansion, and we have the pretty good privacy protocol. They are both used to encrypt and decrypt email messages using PKI. So it's one of the important. And the third one is the secure of Internet of Things. So in this arena, PKI can offer one-size-fits-all solution for IoT device, regardless the uniqueness, because eventually we deal with X509 certificates for the identified devices to authenticate and encrypt data. So obviously, it's also play a big role also here. So this is about PKI. Now, the importance of the certificate management. So we'll talk about 3 major benefits of the certificate manager. We touched it a little bit, but let's make it much more clear. First of all, it's the centralized management and reporting. Think about it like a one-stop shop. It doesn't matter if it's a small company, a large company, you have entities, you have department, users. So once we have a managed solution for all the workflow, it makes the difference. We have for issuing, for renewal, it's something that helps a lot to the organization. And obviously, if we have a SaaS service that it's 24/7, then it's even better, because then it will help us to keep track on all the certificates, even when they are expired. The second benefit, which is also super important, it's the delegated administration. Think about it. We have a lot of stakeholders in the process. For example, if we have to do it in our environment, sometimes we have to deal with engineering, SRE, or IT, depends. So we have many people involved in this process. And once you have a system and with roles and privilege, so you can assign those to the authorized users. And the whole process is not dependent only on one group or one person. It's actually divided by several teams. So it makes it for us a big difference. And the last one is the time and cost saving, which we can see the benefit if we have the organization is growing, the amount of certificates is growing. Having those system in place obviously can reduce time and cost, especially nowadays, that we need to work with, do the same work with less, or with the same people, or more work with the same people. And what is also important for us, that we can also improve the developer velocity in case of dealing with all of this certificates, deployment, and testing, and all of this renewing and everything. The developer can focus on his code, and instead of dealing with it. So it's also help us in this arena, not only for the other teams, but also for the engineering as well. So now let's talk about the implementation of certificate management in anaplan. So two examples. So before I'll start, I'll talk about what is anaplan. So anaplan is a SaaS platform. It actually gives we give our customer the capabilities for better planning and improving their marketing and sales. Usually, business units like finance, sales, marketing, they're actually using this software for better financial planning. And from the technical aspects, we have our IP, which is in memory database, and it also uses file system to store the data. And what we actually have is we are stored also in our private cloud, and also heading into the public cloud. And on top of that, what is important to know that we are not only delivering this SaaS service, but we also have for hypercare for specific big customers, we actually give them a service that can actually monitor their all the usage, collecting their data, and provide them more dashboards, alerts, and some advantages and knowledge for their usage. So it's another service on top of their planning that they can do. They can also benefit from this special care. It's a hypercare. We give them a little bit more. Now, for the two use cases that I'm going to talk is one related to the software itself. So this is the one first scenario. We had our SAML certs, we had to automate them. So think about that, our use case had that our customer actually had a lot of pain. So we had to think how we are going to improve and reduce and prevent the downtime for our customer while doing all the rotation for the SAML cert, like every year. So obviously we had to use certificates, so we have a secure authentication to the anaplan SaaS. However, if we look on the diagram, we actually build in-house. We used our CA, but we also use the certificate manager. And we can see that in the diagram, we did use REST API, so we can actually manage the certificates within our platform, and actually prevent, first of all, it's centralized. We had to centralize management all the customer certificates. And with this automation, and without doing it manually, so we actually benefit from that we prevented the outages that can happen either if we miss to deploy them, or if there were mistakes during the deployment. So during this orchestration that we build behind the scenes, we actually helped the customers more. And obviously, we reduced the manual work that we had to do before by SRE, by engineering, sometimes security. Everyone were involved behind the scenes. So this way we could streamline the process and gain a good feedback that the process is much more mature, no incidents, and our customers are happy. So this is one of the major use cases that we use. Another use case that we use in our company, it's related to the hypercare that I mentioned before. In this solution, we have the administrator, we have the one that are administrating the hypercare, and they have also they have to manage those certificate, the certificate, and actually every year we have to generate a bulk and install them. So before we brought the certificate lifecycle management, these were done manually. And think about it, above 1,000 certificates needs to be manually deployed. So this is not something that can scale. So we create for them a process for bulk certificate creation and delegate it to those teams. So actually they can request a bulk of certificate. It has an approval flow. Also in automation, it also, for the creation itself, it's being created automatically and pushed to the device. We have even zero-touch provisioning. So with this workflow, having it automatically, we actually obviously reduced a lot of manual activities and save time, but we also delegated this administration to a different team and still make anaplan secure, the customer environment secure. So this is it, the second story. That's it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Nate. She's not available to join us for Q&A today, but we've got Paneet. Paneet, what is maybe your key takeaway from that presentation?
So my key takeaway from that presentation is that the automation in the certificate lifecycle management is really important. And every organization which is facing the outages with respect to the certificates, they should focus on doing the automation as soon as possible. That way, basically, they don't face the outages as well as any brand reputation damages.
Okay, thank you, Paneet. Paneet, I don't have any other questions up for this presentation, but is there anything else you want to maybe mention about Encryption Consulting or the conference?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Kala. So what I would suggest to my audience as well as my customers is that they should do a proper assessment of their PKI infrastructure, especially focusing on the 5 pillars, which I normally recommend to my customers. First is focusing on the governance with respect to the certificates and the certificate lifecycle management. The second pillar I normally recommend to my customers is to look into the architecture, both with respect to the HSMs and the certificate authorities, certificate lifecycle management, that if there are any gaps present, and they should build their roadmap based on that. And the third pillar would be map their certificate lifecycle management to the NIST 800/57A and see that if there are any gaps present with respect to the keys, what NIST is what NIST is recommending and what they are following. The fourth pillar I normally recommend to go through the assessment would be the operations, that look at your operations procedures. Do you have enough resiliency within your PKI, HSMs and certificate lifecycle management or not? And the last pillar I would recommend is to do with respect to the compliance and regulations. If you do have any compliance or regulations, and if you're using the weak cryptography with respect to your certificates and the PKI, please do look into those as well. That's all, Kala.
Okay, great, Paneet. I did get one question here. Will the cloud make my PKI more secure?
I would say it's not it's not going to make your PKI secure. Okay, still there are processes are there, because normally the cloud is just going to provide you a certificate authority or HSM basically to store the keys, and those certificates which are going to reside on the entity, you need to take care of them. So those are the things which you have to think about them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Paneet. And that's all the questions we have for the moment. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back at 11:10 Central Time for our next presentation. Thank you so much, Paneet.